Welcome to the Narrowgate Podcast. I'm Weston.
And I'm Logan.
And this is the Nick Laredo episode.
Some people call him Tex.
That's true. Tex graduated in 2017 from Narrowgate. And what a guy. I just really enjoyed that conversation.
Yeah. If you know Nick, you love him because he loves people well.
He really, really does.
Man, I was really encouraged by our conversation today.
Same.
So, as always, if you want to hear more about Narrowgate, you can check out the show notes. And we hope you enjoy this episode.
Nick, welcome to the Narrowgate Podcast, brother.
Glad to be here.
Hey, tell me something. Actually, tell everyone
I'm here too.
something. 2 questions. You ready for them?
Yeah.
Who are you?
Beautiful.
And why are you here?
Love that. And I get to answer this in whichever way I feel, right?
Any way
I
you
love
want,
that.
man.
Yeah. I mean, classy cliche Narrowgate answer, but definitely, a child of God, which is really awesome, right? Because it relieves so much pressure from the world to try to be something that I'm not. And why am I here? Man, it's a good question. Here specifically in doing the Narrowgate podcast, I think it's it's a cool opportunity. And then, man, I think on earth just to be relational and love people like Jesus loves people, I'd say. So,
What do you think?
yeah.
What do I think about his answer?
Yeah.
I think that,
I think it fits,
I approve. I will affirm and agree with that last part because you are a huge encouragement and have been to me, man, especially over the last 2.5 years. I remember when I came back to Grace Chapel and accepted the worship director position from Jonathan, this dude was like in my face, almost any chance he could get. And it was always like a word of encouragement. It was always, man, I'm so excited you're here. Yeah, man, I don't think I'll ever forget that. It really encouraged me and helped me feel.
Welcome.
Just helped me affirm that hey, I was where God wanted me to be.
Yeah.
And you were a huge part of that, man. Thank you.
Praise the Lord.
So you're a graduate from 2017?
17.
So you were in the foundation class that started the day after I started working here.
Yeah, you started and then we were in foundation and I remember the first thing you taught us to do was changing a tire on a truck.
Yeah.
Which seemed as if you needed to change a tire on the truck and was like, well, I have these foundation guys. They're going to change a tire on this truck right now. And
100%.
it was cool though because you were
100%,
teaching us and everything. And I don't think at that point in time I'd change a tire. I was always just used AAA, right? It's like, oh yeah, come change the tire that I just smashed into this curb by trying to drift in the rain. Yeah. That seems like my fault.
It's funny because your class, you were all so different, And so I remember that day changing the tire. You had like you who had admittedly never changed one before. You were like totally willing to learn and like excited about it. You had Julian who was like, I remember laying under the truck. I was just talking about this just a minute ago. He was laying under the truck in like long john underwear for pants with a belt. Right? No belt loops, just a belt. His Indiana Jones hat and like sunglasses.
Yeah.
Like laying under a truck. And I was like, what is this guy doing? And you got Josiah Lamar, who's like ready to prove his worth to everyone and anyone. And he's like, oh, I've changed 1,000 tires, last week. And he's down there, cranking on it. It's just so funny, man. That's a good memory.
Really good class.
Yeah. I have another memory of you actually.
Ooh.
I remember one day you asked if you could drive the white truck up on the ridge line. Because you didn't want to walk. And I was like, no, it's kind of muddy. I'd rather you not, go up there and get it stuck. Why don't you just walk up there and do what you need to do? And you were like,
very logical thing.
Yeah. And you were like, kind of like, all right, kind of grumbling. And then a couple hours later you came back and you're like, hey, I gotta tell you something. And I was like, you took the truck up there, didn't you? And now it's stuck. And you're like, yeah. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
That's why you're here.
Yeah, that's why. Yeah. Decisions in my life, it's like want to ask the question to get the answer that I want, but you didn't give me the answer I want. It's like, but I'm still going to go do the thing that I want to do.
Yep.
Yeah,
that
definitely
was the day
a
that
big
I
MO in my life.
There's Texas flesh pattern. Yeah. There it is on full display.
For those who don't know, you are colloquially referred to around the Narrowgate family as
Tex.
As Tex.
Yeah.
I don't know fully how out of all the Texas people that I was the one that got that. Other than it just kind of stuck after the first like week in foundation. I think it's like
that seems,
Josiah Lamar gave it to me.
Honor for all the guys who come
received
from
it.
Texas.
I
It's like,
received it.
you're the Tex.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's because I had like Texas boots that had the flag on them.
Didn't you have
Okay.
Texas?
And would
like,
you usually
ultimate
wear,
Frisbee
like-
gear?
Yeah. Some
Right
form
on.
of Texas attire.
Yeah.
So it just kind of fit in there.
Yeah.
Where are you from in Texas?
Dallas, like Dallas Richardson area.
It's kind of funny because like so Nick and I have worked together now for the last 2.5 years, being on staff at Grace Chapel. And again, just that I love getting to hang out with you, man. I just love you. But
It's good stuff.
I don't think I've ever really talked to you much about life before Narrowgate.
Right.
You want to give us a little flyover on that? I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
Do you want like the flyover from like the growing up or the flyover from like,
Yeah, man. Whatever
you
whatever
know,
you think is relevant.
teenage, adulthood, Nick?
What's the first memory you have? First.
Oh, do we want the first memory that I have? 'Cause
Yeah.
we asked a question, I think like at staff lunch with this or something.
Did we?
Maybe.
I
I've
wasn't
heard this
listening.
question, but it was at I think it was our volunteer dinner that we had for middle school ministry.
Okay.
And that was a question that got brought up. And so I'll
Okay.
give you the answer that I gave then. The first memory I have is for me probably being like 2 or 3 years old, somewhere around that young. And I remember running around kind of my house naked as a baby. And like our kitchen, there was like, you had like the living room and then there's like this kind of openness that would lead into the kitchen. And so right there, as I'm running, a turd falls out. And I look back at the turd and I look up at my dad and then I giggle and keep running. And I think this story fits me well in my life.
Core
You know?
memory, dude.
Core memory. It's shaped the years of my life. You know,
He just looks up, smiles at his dad.
looked up, smile, keep running.
That's his origin story.
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
he became a villain.
Yeah.
I'm a villain now.
Do you remember your first memory ever?
I do actually. So, and I've gotten context about the memory.
Yeah.
since
Oh, I
then,
did.
so
I
I'm
did
gonna-
the same. Because again, I'm like, well, how
Yeah.
old was I when this happened?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard my parents tell me this story, but I remember. Okay, so the story is, my parents had this red Mercedes stick shift,
Bragger.
and they parked it in the driveway, which we lived up on a hill, and our driveway was really steep, and so I got in it one day. I guess we were like going to church or going somewhere, and I got in it before they did, like way before they did. I was in this Mercedes by myself, and I pulled it out of gear, and it rolled down the hill and crashed into a tree. And they had just got it painted, like literally like 2 weeks before, and so I wrecked it and messed up all the paint job. But the thing that my memory, so that's the story, that's the context that I've gotten since then. But my memory was, I remember sitting in the Mercedes and messing with stuff, acting like I was driving. And I remember pulling it out of gear, not knowing that I'd done that because I was like literally like maybe 3 or 4. I pulled it out of gear and I felt it rolling. And I remember having the feeling like, oh, I better put that back. And I remember trying to put it back and it wasn't doing anything because, you got to push in the clutch and all that. And so I remember that vividly, like, oh, I need to put this back, putting it back and it not doing anything and then rolling backwards and freaking out. Yeah.
Wow.
So that was my first memory.
Well, we're glad you're okay.
So I wrecked my first car at 3 years old.
That makes sense.
Yeah. I feel like that defines me.
Yeah,
I
it
feel like
kinda-
yeah. I mean, wasn't my last.
Yeah.
Mine's not probably as cool as either of those. I'll brag and say this. I think it was earlier than those. I think I have an earlier
okay.
memory than both of those.
Really? Than
And,
3?
well, yeah, because I had to. I told my parents, I was like, yeah, I think my first memory ever. I remember sitting by our front glass door, the front door glass door in Abilene, Texas.
Come on.
And I remember the first time we saw our family cat, who was like a stray, who we let in. And I remember the conversation. I remember the conversation vividly where my dad named the cat because he had like 6 toes on one foot and like 7 toes on another foot. So that he was like, yeah, this cat has odd toes. We're going to call him Otto. So yeah, bad jokes and puns.
No, that's cool, though.
And so then
And
I
that
asked
fits
them,
you.
and they're
And
like,
that fits
yeah, really corny humor. So this does define me. Yeah, but they were like, no, like they were like, dude, that was when you were like 1 year old. I'm like, well, I remember that vividly. Like,
That's crazy.
So
That's a good story.
Stay
and
with
today
me,
I
dude.
have barely any memory at all. So,
No, that's
okay, so
Yeah.
what else?
So
happened
moving on
after-
from that.
after
Yeah,
your-
yeah.
Whatever
After
you wanna
the
share, man.
defining moment then. I think, grew up in the Christian home. Mom, dad, had a sister, always had a dog. And I think it was roughly around probably 6th grade or so, is when I kind of like stopped wanting to go to church. But even before that, which I think learning from Narragate was really cool about like identity things and like digging back into stuff. I would get in trouble a lot in school. So like,
Is that from like cutting up and like having fun kind of, or
kind of more just a defiance towards authority that also seems like it's something that
Yep.
he said,
followed me in life a good bit.
all right.
But I was in 3rd grade and we were at a baseball practice and we were at these batting cages and we're at the batting cage and me and this guy get into it and I end up calling him a jackass and he gets mad or whatever and his practice, we end up ending practice had ended or whatever like that. And then on the next day of school, his mom was my teacher. And like I got in trouble at school for what I did outside of school. And like that, like I think did something to me where it's like,
yeah.
oh, I'm just a troublemaker then. And so then like not knowing way back then, it's like that, identity controls your behavior. So then I think from then on, it was like I just believed that, oh, I'm the troublemaker. I'm the guy that says the funny thing in class. I'm the guy that will be defiant to the teacher or be disruptive, or I'm just going to do what Nick wants to do. And so that kind of just followed me throughout the years of school. So where there was a moment in, I think, 7th or 8th grade, and I was in Spanish class, and the teacher's name was Mr. Turner. And sorry, Mr. Turner.
Shout out, Mr.
But
Turner.
shout out Mr. Turner. But he just told everyone to take everything off their desk. And I was just being a little twerp and was like, no, it's my binder. I don't want to take it off the desk. What if somebody takes it off the ground? What if it gets dirty? All the stupid excuses. So he ends up calling the student resource officer down there. And it's me, the cop, and the teacher out in the hallway. And the officer says, well, if you don't apologize to the teacher, I'm going to write you a ticket. And I said, well, you're going to have to write me a ticket because I'm not apologizing to him. So that was the kind of level of stupidity and defiance that I was like operating in probably from like 12 years old until like 17 or 18. So skipped a bunch of school. Freshman year, I went to kind of this little private school and it was kind of okay. Sophomore year, went back to the public school with my friends, but just skipped a bunch of school. I absence failed that sophomore year. So my friends were juniors and I was a sophomore and I had just like gotten out of like the truancy court system. So I'd been going to court like all sophomore year, like to have to deal and like do community service and little things here and there. And so my friends were juniors. I was a sophomore again. It was already had like 9 unexcused absences or something like that by November. And so we just made a decision. It's like, all right, like let's go ahead and like just withdraw from school, get the GED. Cause like if you have to go, cause there was potential, I don't know how it fully works, but like there was potential for me to serve time in like juvenile for skipping school. And it's like, if that becomes something that I have to do based off skipping school, it's like, that's just not going to be good for you. Let's just cut our losses, Nick. School's not for you. You don't like it. You're just being disruptive and all the things. And I think that was also an identity thing as well, right? Where it's like, I didn't believe in myself that I could do the work. And as soon as I would get behind, it's like, oh, well, I'm already behind. Well, let me just, whatever. I give up. You just do your thing. I'm going to do my own thing. And so when I was 17 or 18, so it was my friend's senior year of high school, and we would always go to his cabin in the summer. So this is before going to his senior year. It was in Santa Fe National Forest. Sam Oliver, another Narragate graduate, him and his family's played a huge part in kind of my story. So we're up there and we're there on a Sunday and his grandpa says, if you, we did like a little devotional. He was talking about, if you pray once a day, it'll make the biggest difference in your life. And I was like, all right. I mean, dropped out of high school at this point. Like, what do I got to lose? Like, I'm out here in the mountains. I could try it or something. And so literally just started trying that. And so, what I didn't know then that I know now is like, I would pray for little things like, oh God, like thanks for the green light. Thanks that it didn't change, that I just didn't even have to slow down, or just like little things throughout the days and the weeks and stuff. Started going to church with him, with Sam, and we were kind of like leaders in the youth group as like big senior leaders, going to all the things. Went to camp that summer at ACU called Kadesh, which was super awesome and cool. Kind of like rededicated my life. Didn't know this until later on in life. like they were really pushing me to get baptized, and because it was Church of Christ and everything, and so I was like, but I didn't realize why, and it was like looking back, I'm like, oh, they didn't think I had like actually like, been saved yet.
Yeah, I didn't figure that one out until I grew up and left the Church of Christ that they believed that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that tracks. Colin, did you ever attend an Abilene Christian University camp?
No.
Okay, back to you.
Yeah, so that summer, and I ended up made kind of the decision on my own, but got baptized that summer as well, which was cool. And we did it in Sam's pool, and it was him, his dad, my dad, and our youth pastor, and then like probably like 60 or so people. And it was cool because like I have like looking back on that photo, it's like there are people from high school that definitely weren't believers. There were people from high school that were Mormons. There were some Jewish people there. There were our youth group people there. So it was just a cool thing that I think has been something in my life that I think God has made me very relational. So I think even though it was like a spiritual, like a baptism thing, it's like that some people wouldn't come to. It's like, but they showed up anyways because of like the relational capacity that the Lord has given me and everything, and made me relational with people. They're like, oh, I'll go up and I'll support Nick for this thing that maybe I don't even believe in or whatever, but I'm going to be here for the thing. Sam went off to college, and I was just kind of like, cool. Well, I'm just going to do life now. And so, doing life was just like me being like kind of like lazy, I would say. I would call myself an adult, but I definitely wasn't an adult. It's like I was living at home with my parents, like with no desire to move out. I was working at UPS and Dick's Sporting Goods at the time. So I'd work UPS in the evenings, Dick's Sporting Goods during the day. And then in my free time, I would just play like a bunch of ultimate Frisbee, which is like fun.
Oh, you had the ultimate Frisbee thing before, Nick.
Oh,
Yeah.
dude, he came in professional.
Came in. We played in a tournament when I was here. I don't know how the Lord lined that up. Like, shout out to Colin Smith as well for that one.
Y'all got smoked, didn't you?
Yes and no.
Now wait a second.
Yes
Right.
and no.
Hold on. I gotta say this. We played in that tournament. We'd played one before without like years before you.
Years before. That's when I played the role of the coach.
Yes.
I'm so excited.
Yes. You came as the coach.
Yeah, we
That's
can
right.
throw up an image of that.
Yeah,
If we find it
we'll
later.
find the mic for
And,
those
and
who
our,
can't see.
our
Just had
team,
Slim
our
Mike.
team like break was who told you were naked. You remember that?
Yeah.
We would go
Who
1,
told you
2,
to-
3. Who
who
told you were naked? And
naked?
everyone is like, "What did they say? Like, did they say that?" So
Yeah.
that was one time, and we got absolutely.
Smacked on that one, probably, I would bet.
I mean, it was terrible.
We didn't have any.
It was terrible.
We
We
didn't
lost
have
to
any
a
people on
high
the
school
sidelines.
team.
Yeah.
We played back-to-back games
with
with no reserves.
yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so then we jumped in this one.
Yeah, so this tournament was cool because I was like, one, it was in June. It's a tournament here in Tennessee called Monkey Bowl. And like I was like, how the heck? Like I'm just now in community basically, and I'm already getting to do the thing that was like essentially like my, I don't want to say like vice or anything, but that was the way I escaped reality. You know, it's like, oh, I'm just going to play a bunch of ultimate Frisbee and do whatever the heck I want to do. You know, it's like, so it wasn't necessarily, you know, like I think ultimate Frisbee is like, I love the sport, but it's very much, you know, free love. Like there's lots of homosexuality, there's lots of drugs, there's lots of alcohol and all that kind of stuff. So it's like, well, even though I wasn't doing this stuff at the parties, it's like I'm definitely encouraging my friends to do it. And it's like, and I definitely would say I had an evil heart. So just because I wasn't going and necessarily like hooking up with the girl at the party, it's like, but my heart definitely still, well, if I could, I would kind of a thing. So it was kind of weird because I'm like, but yeah, I'll play some ultimate Frisbee. And we kind of got smacked. We played with a couple other dudes that we picked them up, and so like I'm on a team now on Monday Nights League that can't, like, they're the people that we played with were on this team or whatever, which is kind of cool. But there's this dude named Jamie, and that dude, he was a baller. And I remember meeting him, and my thought was, so Colin told me there are these 3 other guys that we picked up or something that kind of play ultimate. So my thought was like, well, nobody at Narragansett really like knows like this kind of ultimate Frisbee, like the competitive side, the like club side and everything. It's like, we just have athletes that can throw a Frisbee and run and catch really well. So I was like, I'm going to see if these guys have ever played club or anything like that. And the dude, Jamie, it's like has played for this team that like goes to nationals before, like, and I'm like, sweet. So we got one dude that knows what he's doing out here. But yeah, we lost to a team of old men. So it's called like a Grand Masters, I think, which means you have to be 45 years old or older to be on the team. And they beat us 13-3. But we did get a win against Tennessee's like men's team called Blade, and we beat them. That time.
I would
It was
imagine a group of guys who were like, what's our team name going to be?
Blade.
They're going to feel a little embarrassment anytime they lose.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, Blade, if you're listening.
Yeah. And it was funny because I played against Blade in other tournaments. Like I played against that team.
Yeah. Because you said your friend Sam
Yeah, Sam.
came and went through Narragansett. Did he graduate before you came?
He
or
graduated
were you guys here
before.
at the same time?
He graduated
what
before.
What was that like?
Yeah. So Sam came in 2016. He was going through a tough time in life, and he was working with me at Dick's Sporting Goods and stuff, and came here, and like he's like struggled at the beginning of foundation, but like pushed through that, and then is like, yes, this is exactly where I'm supposed to be and all the things. And so then when he was in service, he would call me. And so he would talk to me and be like, bro, you need to come out here and like do this thing. Like it's all outdoors. It's all about Jesus. Like we play ultimate Frisbee. It's like, you love it. And it's like, just as you would say to a friend, like, hey, we should get dinner soon. But you never actually go and get dinner with that friend. You just, yeah, we should do the thing, but you don't ever do it.
Now, me specifically?
No. I'm not. I know I'm looking at you specifically.
Remember?
Yeah, no, I gotta call some people. I'll be right back.
Yeah. This is that it have people like, oh, let's totally catch up, and it just never happens.
Yeah.
And so then there was like a video that came out, and I remember I was going camping in Tyler, Texas, and watched this video or listened to this video because my eyes were totally on the road as I was driving to Tyler, Texas. But listen to this video, and at the very beginning of the video, it's Sam saying I was playing 12 to 14 hours of video games a day. I was smoking weed 24/7. I was living a purposeless life. And that was the chord, the word that the Lord used to strike my heart of like, Nick, that's what you're doing. You're living at home with your parents. At this point, I was working at Dick's Sporting Goods in a pharmacy doing like their shipping stuff. And it was like, I was making money because you're supposed to do that as an adult, but like there was no desire to move out of my parents' house. There was no desire to do anything to further my life. It was just like, well, I'm just going to, do this and play ultimate Frisbee and kind of just do whatever I want to do in life. So that was that chord of like, there has to be more there, that purposelessness in my life. And so just prayed about, he had his graduation coming up that December. And so I was praying about that and just asking the Lord, like, God, if you want me to go to this place and, make it clear. And so when I pulled on campus for his graduation, it was just really clear. Like one, Narragate has that thing about it, right? It's like, which is the presence of the Lord, right? It's like there are so many people praying for Narragate all the time. It's like the Lord's presence is here. So it's like, and you feel that, especially if you're paying attention to it. So it's like pulling on campus and just feeling that peace and feeling the joy and like getting out of the car and seeing all like the bros hanging out on the steps and like, I can't remember his actual name, but his name was Beaver, but he had like a big old beard. And I remember he was like playing a guitar or something. Maybe I'm thinking of the wrong guy, but like just this atmosphere of like joy was just kind of here. And so then went down to the barn and he does kind of his vision and purpose. I'm like, oh man, that's really cool. Like I want that like kind of thing.
Who was that?
Sam.
Okay.
Sam for his vision and purpose.
I got you.
And then his dad did the blessing and, and crying through both those things. And it's like, so it's just very much like the Lord was like, just continuing to prod my heart of like, dude, come on. Like that invitation, like come do the thing. And so then we get back home and it's like 5 days after that or something. We're watching a Cowboys game at Sam's house. It's me, Sam, our buddy J Lord, and we're watching the game and halftime hits and Sam just like puts the laptop in front of me with the application up there of like, hey man, you remember you told me like, cause we went out to dinner and I told him and his family, it's like, yeah, I think I need to apply. I need to do the thing. And so he put it in front of me and I was kind of trying to weasel out of it a little bit. And his mom comes in and she's like, what are y'all talking about in here or something? And Sam's like, Nick's trying to weasel out of going to Narragate. And I was like, no. And then she goes, give me the laptop and just starts asking me the questions. And like, so like, since I wasn't going to type, she just like started, okay, so what's this? And I would answer and she would type it in and stuff. And then, yeah, had the opportunity to come January, but ended up coming to March because that's where I felt like from the Lord. And so, and the rest was history. Then I was an Narragansett student.
Type it up.
Yeah.
Cut, print, history books.
Tap it up.
So what happened to you in Narragansett?
Yeah. Narragansett was cool. It was awesome. It was just, I think, the first time I had been like away from my parents for that long, which is something that I don't think I ever really think about, but it's like, I had never been out of the house and out on my own. Cause most people, they go to college, but it's like, I started working at like 17, 18 years old, in a warehouse job. And it was like, oh, I don't need college for this. I can sling boxes the rest of my life. And so it was cool kind of being on my own and getting to learn what that looks like and getting to, learn from other guys who had been on their own and hear kind of their stories. Foundation was cool and a little wild and crazy. I think just with the class that we had, it was we just had a lot of different unique stories of everything that people have dealt with and going through. And so a lot of the time while we're here, I'm like, but like I don't have like a rough lifestyle, or I wasn't super addicted to the drugs, or like, but it's like, but that's what I love about Narragansett. It's not just for people who have like those like addictions, or it's like, it's a wide spectrum, right? It's like we're all broken and we're all seeking that thing of like, God, there has to be more than me just filling my life doing drugs. God, there has to be more than me just working jobs that have no potential future and playing ultimate Frisbee. It's like, there has to be that more. And so I think being here and actually like studying the word for the first time in my life, because like I would have called myself a Christian when I was playing ultimate Frisbee from like that 18 to 24 range or whatever. I would even pray with people on the field. If somebody got injured, like, oh yeah, I'll pray for that. But it's like, but the heart wasn't like fully there, if that makes sense. It was very much a transactional gospel where it's like, God has saved me and that's awesome. And now I get to go to heaven and I should love people and be courteous and do what I can. But it's like, but it wasn't like an accurate love. And I remember talking to Bill about that at a Cracker Barrel one time. We were doing something, who knows what, but like, it was our class and we were out, and him talking about, he gave this kind of like exaggerated thing of like, okay, Nick, so you're saying like you're loving people, but are you loving them? It's like, if you had a gash on your face and you were like, no, I'm good, I don't need to go to the hospital. It's like, but you're bleeding out of this gash in your face. It's like, it's not loving for me to not take you to the hospital. It's like, you need to go to the hospital or you're going to bleed out and die, kind of thing. So I think what that looked like for me in the ultimate Frisbee community, it's like there are people who were not living their lives for Christ. I wasn't living my life for Christ at that point in time. So it's like loving people looks like bringing them the truth of the gospel. It looks like bringing them the really hard thing to say, but it's like, but it's what is actually true. It's like, just because I don't feel like it makes me feel good or bad. It's like, but the truth is what the truth is. And like, and we get, that's what we heard the word. It's like, it tells us what the actual truth is, to base our lives for and to help us grow and to continue in our walk with the Lord and stuff. So those are things I wasn't doing from 18 to 24, but then coming to Narragansett, I think it kind of showed me, it started me on that path of what does it actually look like to love people and like call out sin in their life in a loving way, not just being like, you're sinning, stop doing that. Yeah. It's like, no, it's like, hey man, like, why do you think you're doing that? Or, start asking like questions and stuff. And then
what is it that you think you need from this that you're not getting from the Lord?
Right. Yeah. Or like, why do you do the things that you do? It's like, so really I think starting to press inward and ask questions to myself, Narragansett helped that a bunch. And then also, the fact of like recognizing that God speaks to us. Like that was something I didn't know about at all. It's like growing up and I love my parents. It's like, but we didn't have like a spiritual relationship whatsoever. It's like, and that was my fault, right? It's like, I'm super distant. I'm off doing my own thing. I'm super disrespectful and rebellious to them. So it's like, well, it's hard to have that spiritual relationship. It's like, God, I don't want to talk about God with y'all whatsoever. Get out of here. Like there had been times when my mom would take me to the alternative school because of being too much in school suspension. And like, that was her quiet time in the morning. And I didn't realize that. She's like, I just like to drive with the radio off. And I'm like, remember yelling at her. It's like, well, okay, where's your God? Like, why am I the way I am then, Mom? Like, why did Dad lose his job? Like, and it's like, why this, why that? And like yelling. It's like, but that didn't shake her. It's like, because she knew who was in control. You know what I mean? that never stopped her and her people for praying for me. That then it's like God heard. I'll never forget. It's like the first week or so, and there was this older woman who sat like just in front of the Narragansett guys, and so we're in Grace Chapel on that Sunday morning, and this woman was like on her knees, like you could she was just battling, and it was like the Lord just kind of like, it's like, dude, that's what your mom was doing for you.
Wow.
You know what I mean? And it's like, dude,
That reminds me of a couple
so sick.
couple conversations
Yeah.
that I've had with my mom, similar things that I would like shout at my parents just to rile them up.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I want to kind of like hop forward a bit, and just kind of juxtapose what you just said about like, man, well, these are the things that God was teaching me at Narragansett to like who I see you as now.
Yeah.
Somebody who hungers to worship God, somebody who's grown, not just in your ability to lead worship, but in your like, man, like what, a year ago, you're like, yeah, I think I want to do piano more. And then like what, a couple weeks ago, I'm seeing this dude, like your skill level on piano is just going. So there's this like part of you that like, I don't know, man, you've got such a fresh way of talking about worship that inspires me. And I think inspires a lot of people. And then secondly, I think if you were to ask, all these parents of kids that you've interacted with as middle school coordinator, these last handful of years, like, man, what's your favorite thing about Nick? They would say he loves my kids well.
Yeah.
Because you this dude like I don't know if you're probably too humble to just like lead with any of this. So like that's like a defining quality of Nick is that he's known for like showing up at kids extracurricular stuff, making those students like feel supported. All over town.
Yeah.
And it's just, I just didn't know that was like kind of a core piece of like, yeah, I was loving people, but I wasn't like really loving people. And then to hear like from all these parents, like Nick loves my kids well.
Yeah.
So yeah, dude, I don't know. I'm just encouraged to hear that,
Yeah.
that kind of ball got kind of rolling, around Narragansett, which kind of makes sense, but
yeah. Well, and it's like, I think it goes it's like kind of even deeper than that. And I'm trying to figure out how to say this in a loving way towards my parents, because it like wasn't their fault. But like, I think like our pains can be things that really like grow us really well. Right. So I think growing up, because I was so rebellious and so distanced from my parents, it's like my parents weren't able to have that kind of connection with me. So I think, and this was like finding this out, like doing like some counseling stuff to where figuring this out and like looking back on my childhood. Oh, what was my childhood like? And it's like, and looking back, it's like, oh man, I wanted someone to show up for me, but I was distancing myself. And so to get the attention and the affirmation I was looking for, it's like, okay, I'm going to act up in class because then people are like showing up or doing these things. Or whether it's like, oh, well, my dad is taking me to the court for the truancy thing. It's like, but we're together kind of a thing. So I think there's a thing of me growing up and not feeling like I got that. And again, I'm not saying that was my parents' fault. It's like I was a very big pushed away kind of a thing. But it's actually then became one of my greatest strengths now as like leading the middle school ministry and doing that for the past 4 or so years. And even as the outreach guy, the couple years before that, it's like showing up is so valuable in their lives. It's like, that was something I think I learned here at Narragansett as well, was that like nobody cares about how much you know until they know how much you care. So how can I expect these students to listen to anything I say whatsoever? It's like, if they don't actually believe that I care about them as a person. And it's like, I don't have the power to like save anybody, right? I don't have the power to like force a kid to follow Jesus, but it's like, but I do have the power to like show up in their life and be like, hey dude, like, great job with your game. Or like, hey, did you have fun doing that? Or like just asking questions and just showing up, letting them know that I care about them as a person. And something that I found out early on in 2018, when I first started working at the church, is like just showing up in their lives like changes everything. Like there's something in them that's like, oh, he's not just a church guy. Like he actually like cares. And it's fun. It's like you want people to show up for the things you enjoy doing. So whether that's like a baseball game or a musical, or it's like, but it's something that they love to do. And it's like, it's super easy to be like, yeah, I'll come and do that thing. And the Lord has given me the lifestyle that has allowed that, right? It's like, it's not easy to do if you're married with 3 kids, right? To try to show up to every single game. But it's like, it's really easy to do if you're like, yeah, I just live with some roommates. I could do whatever. Like, yeah, let's do the thing. So there's just a lot of value in like showing up because it shows that I care about them, I think.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah. And it's fun.
So what's next? Are you going to be in student ministry forever?
Yeah, I don't know. So in a season currently where I think last year I was kind of starting to talk with Dylan, our student pastor, who's also Narragansett grad. Just kind of like feeling a stirring in my heart more so with like worship and outreach things, and kind of wanting to figure out what could a position look like that, to where it's like maybe if I'm doing worship and outreach in the student ministry as a whole, and just kind of feeling like I think the Lord has definitely had me in the leader position from 2020 to 2024 for specific reasons. Like I think with how he's made me relationally, I think as our church went through the church split, I think me being able to be there for lots of students that both stayed and left, it was really good that I was in that role relationally, because a lot of the times with the church split, it's like kids can get really hurt in that and been like, oh, well, totally this and that, you know, but being able to still be relational to where it's like there were kids that like left our church, but like I would still go up to their basketball game or something. There was a kid, his name's Kale, who would run sound for us, and he ended up leaving the church, but it's like he was we've caught up a couple times, but like he was at a celebration of life at the church like 2 weeks ago, and came into the middle school room, and I won. There's a celebration of life was on a Saturday, and he like wrote this little note and put it on our soundboard that was just like, hey, have like a great Sunday, love, Kale. And I was like, dude, this kid, he's a baller. But like just things like that, to where it's like I think if somebody else is in that position that isn't relational, it's like, who knows, maybe then some kids get turned off to church for good. It's like, oh, that's what church is like. I don't want any part of that mess whatsoever. So, so just trusting that I think God has somebody for this next season. So, in January this year, we hired Walker as like kind of our pastoral youth intern, with an idea of like, hey, maybe he's the guy to take my job and to fill my role.
Another Narragansett grad.
Another Narragansett graduate. Yep. And so, and it worked out, and he kind of, you know, as he prayed through it and we continued to pray through it in April, he kind of made that decision. It was like, yeah, I think this is what the Lord's calling me into. So kind of worked on, what does that transition look like, making sure to, you know, tell our volunteers, tell our staff, and tell the students and stuff. And so make sure that they're good with that information. So it's not just a thing where they're just, wait, what? He's gone? Like, and I actually really love the way we've been doing the transition. And I've tried to be very intentional, like with our 7th grade boys who are going to be 8th graders next year, like really trying to like get them buying into Walker, right? And Walker's been doing an amazing job in that, of like leading them well and everything. So it's not this thing, right, that it's like, oh, but if Nick's not in middle school ministry, then what happens? It's like, and if that's the case, it's like we're doing something wrong. Because like middle school ministry should not be about me, right? It's like, it's about Jesus. And
we should be able to copy and paste that to all the other ministries involved in the church
right.
too. Man, if it's about the one guy,
about the leader of the ministry, we've messed it up. You know what I mean? So, and sure, like I've played an important role, and students and families and volunteers love me and I love them, but it's like, but it's like, it's a good thing to know. It's like, okay, God, you're doing something, and I trust the fact that he's going to do something. So, the hope is that if the Lord moves, that there could be like a student worship and outreach thing at Grace. I don't think that's the case, kind of just where we're at and stuff. So just seeing kind of what's next with the Lord, and just kind of taking it day by day.
We all go through seasons of transition, right? We all go through things. I mean, for me, it was like career changes, church changes. There's so many things that like we know our identity is rooted in Christ, and then God has given us like, you know, a unique calling,
right,
a vocation to walk out empowered by Him. But it's so funny how I don't know if you felt this too, just how easy these little snares kind of reach out and grab us, and we feel attached to a specific thing in a specific place. And then when that changes, it's like, oh, I feel like my whole identity got rocked a little bit, or at least it was.
Well,
for me.
yeah, man. I mean, I think with everybody.
So like, I think there's a lot. I don't know, man. You have any like what's God teaching you in this transition?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I think he's teaching me is like, just because he's calling me to do something does not mean it's where I need to make my paycheck. So like the
Come on,
paycheck
say
can
that,
come.
Say that again louder for
Yeah.
the people in the back.
Yeah. It's like, so often we think it's like, oh, well, God's calling me to do this thing, so I have to make money in doing that thing. Or, well, God's calling me to minister to the youth, so I have to be a youth pastor. It's like, well, not necessarily. It's like, I think it's like, I'm very fortunate, being that we've had these like full-time positions at Grace Chapel, right? That's like, that as a middle school leader, I'm in a full-time role. It's like, but that's not the case at so many churches, I feel like, across the nation, where it's like, usually it's like their youth guys like working a full-time job and comes in on Sundays and Wednesdays and leads the youth ministry. And so it's like, I've been super blessed to be able to be like, oh, sweet, I can go watch a football game for a student and leave 2 hours early on another day or something. Like, I work that stuff into my schedule and stuff. So, cause I think what I felt most called to is kind of like in that high school ministry worship realm. And I see a lot of potential in some of these juniors that are going to be seniors next year. To where it's like, dude, you've got the heart and you've got the skill. It's like, but you need somebody who's like giving you opportunity, helping you grow, helping you learn, and like allowing you to fail, and then helping to like, hey, well, what do we do when we fail? Like, sweet, let's figure this out together and stuff, and just like kind of continue to be relational in that aspect. So I think it's like, regardless of what the job looks like, it's like, there doesn't have to be a job as like the worship pastor or something to be able to go and do that thing.
Well, I'll tell you, there's been some seasons in my life where I accepted positions at a church that, if I'm completely honest with myself, like God did not call me there.
Yeah.
Where I was like, nope, this is how I'm going to make my paycheck. And it was almost like in defiance of the Lord. Was it a healthy season for me? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
And so I think that is an important perspective and a needed perspective to take and to hear, and especially to graduates, dude. Whatever God has called you to doesn't mean you have to make your paycheck doing that. Like Paul mended nets, tent maker. There you go.
He probably mended a net or two.
Probably mended it.
Maybe
I don't know.
Yeah, that was like, common practice.
But again, like, dude, you were going to say that like he didn't have a calling on his life.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm sure he was supported in some ways, but like, I don't know, dude. You got anything to say about that?
Yeah,
like
there's like this cheesy one-liner that I think of that is actually really powerful. Like, God won't call you to something that he won't call you through.
Right.
Right. Like, I just think that's so powerful, because if God has designed you in a way that there's purpose in what you do, it doesn't have to fit the mold of some earthly form that we've created around how to minister to people. And so if the concern is, well, I can't make money at that, well, then hello, there's your idol. It's like, God's called me to this, but it doesn't pay me, so that must not be right. It's like, no, that can't be it. And the fact that it would register on your radar, to me, is kind of a red flag. But for what you're saying, it's like, no, that isn't an obstacle, because God's bigger than an income. God's going to provide for my means. If he's called me to it, he'll carry me through it, and I love that.
Yeah. It's like that. There's that phrase, and I think it's a poster down in the basement, where it's like, the will of God won't take you where the grace of God won't protect you, kind of a thing, to where it's like, and I think it's easier to come at all this and to come into a big transition in life. It's like, because I'm secure in who God has called me to be. So it's like, regardless of what I do, it's like, whether it looks like ministry and being like a middle school leader, or whether it looks like if I go sell cars and then volunteer in the high school ministry worship, it's like, I'm still going to be like who God has made me to be, which is to be relational to people and to love people like Jesus loves people, kind of. And I think having that security has come from like that place, and like learning more about myself as the years, but like figuring that out is like, you need to know your identity, so that it doesn't matter that there can be a big storm that can come and try to sway you. It's like, yeah, but God still has me, and God has called me to be relational and love people like Jesus loves people, regardless of where that's at, whether that's in ministry, or if it's in the business world, or if it's overseas doing YWAM, or like whatever. It's like, who has God called us to be first? And then it's like the other stuff kind of works itself out, I feel like, almost. And that doesn't mean it's easy, right?
Yeah.
It's like, I could go and like, it could be tough to find a job. I don't think so, but like, just kind of feel like God is working in kind of two avenues currently, but like, there's just peace. I think when you know it's like that God has you, it's like there's peace. And I'm also in an easier situation where it's like I don't have a family that I'm having to like provide for. I'm like, okay, how am I going to pay this mortgage with these 3 kids and do this thing? And
Let's get this guy a wife and a house.
Sure, but like,
ASAP.
at the same time, though,
Really
like,
rock
this
his
is
boat
one
a
of
little
those
bit.
moments where you're gonna develop that sort of deeper trust in God to carry you
Right.
through those challenges, so that when
Right.
you do have a wife and kids, and those same challenges arise and they
Right.
feel heavier, you're prepared for it because you've been through that before.
yeah,
So it's like every step along the way is an important step.
right,
Yeah.
for sure.
Dude, and I'll just say this. I mean, even in I've seen this in private conversations, at the church and at
Yeah.
work, but even the way you continue to talk about it, the ability to hand the baton off to somebody else and do it well
hmm
is not something we see often enough
Yeah.
in our world. And I just see that kind of all over you right now. I mean, it seems like you're honoring the Lord and you're honoring Walker in handing that position. Not to say that it's all smooth and it's not sometimes difficult, but
Yeah.
like I see you handling it really well, and I just want to encourage you with that, because that is not always the case,
Yeah.
even in ministry.
It's intentional prayer.
Yeah.
Because like even when, me and Dylan had a conversation probably like a week before worship night we had in November or something. And it was kind of this conversation of, hey man, like, basically there's a book and he'd asked me to be reading this book, and me being, the
Rebellious.
rebellious employee I am, hadn't read the book. And it was like, and Dylan's shown me so much grace and all the times that he's been my boss and everything like that. But it's just kind of like, it's that thing of like, dude, what is it going to take for you to do the thing? And having this conversation is like, and we'd already been in conversation of like, trying to look, we're looking for the person to come or whatever. And I mean, it's like, how am I, he says like, how am I supposed to like fight for you to have like a job here, like to create a new position or whatever for you, if you can't do this thing, you know what I mean? And it's kind of in that category of like that hunger of like that drive to do the thing, which is somewhere where I lack in that kind of a thing. And I know that, and like the flesh part of me, we talked it out. And this is what I love about Dylan's, because there's such relationship there between the two of us. So it's like, we can have the conversation. And it's like, I was like, in my flesh, it's like, I want to be like, all right, then screw this. I'm out. Let's see how y'all do without me. You know what I mean? But that's just all pride. And it points to me thinking like, oh, it's me. I'm the one that makes middle school ministry the thing. It's like, that's just so wrong.
Yeah.
So having that kind of like a recognition of my flesh back then in November makes it super easy to be like humble during this process of like, there is a guy, we are passing the baton, we are doing these things, and also just being super intentional in prayer. So that worship night that happened a week after that conversation, it's like, Lord led me to go to Dylan to say, hey man, can we pray? Because like, I just feel like the enemy wants to divide you and me as like just brothers. And it's like, and I don't want that, because I love you. And he's like, same thing. So it's like, it's just been intentional prayer, and same throughout the thing of like, God, don't let me be bitter. Because it's weird once that final like official thing where it's like, hey, yeah, man, we're probably not gonna have a spot for you here on SAP. We just, not gonna, it's just not happening or whatever, which is fine. It's like, okay, so as of April, May, it's like, I know that I do not have a job here. So it's like part of you is like, so then why would I want to still give my all? It's like, well, yeah, because it's like, it's something God is still like, you finish strong. And it's like, until that.
Well, I mean,
you know
going
what I
all the
mean?
way back to the beginning of the conversation,
and praying
like
about
God
it.
gave you purpose.
Right.
And your purpose extends far beyond, or go deeper
Right.
than
a job.
what your job is.
Right.
And I don't know, dude. I've just been encouraged through this whole process because I see that on you. Like you have a purpose and a calling to be relational, like to share the gospel and to love people well. And I just see you continuing to do that. So
Yeah. It's been cool.
before we go, if you, man, just reflecting on your Narrowgate experience as a student, everything since, if you had one thing that you wanted to leave our audience with, which is primarily Narrowgate graduates, how would you want to encourage them today, or challenge them, or insert cool words here? Question mark.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. I think the challenge would be the whole do whatever God is calling you to do, regardless if you're making money from it or not. like regardless if it's your job or your career or not. 'Cause I like thinking about that. It's like, I think a lot of the times people, they attend churches and everything. And so you're attending a church or whatever. It's like, oh, but that's the paid staff's job to do those things. It's like, but is it? So, and I think a lot of time with Narragate grad, it's like, oh, well, I'm going to go and do YWAM, or I'm going to go do this. Or it's like, sometimes we can just kind of trail off. And so like, continue to reread that vision and purpose. You know, that's one of the things that has made me like press into the music stuff more. It's like, cause it's in my vision and purpose, and I have that in my desk, and I read it and look back at it to be like, God, what were the things that you were calling me to do? What were the things that you were speaking to me when I was, you know, and I would think for most graduates, like this Narragate is when you are your closest with the Lord that you've most likely been in your life. And not that it stays that way, but it's like, it was a place where I had heard from the Lord of what he was calling me to do. And so it's good to revisit that, and then good to continue to ask him questions based off that. So like that, is just really, I think, important to like, God, what did you call me to do? And like, am I doing it? It's like, because God can do so much with our little obedience. Like I got to do, lead a little worship for GCA, but they have like their musicals, and they'll do like a little thing beforehand. And it's like, and it was just by just saying, yeah, sure, I'll do that. It's like the Holy Spirit does like far more than we can even like think or imagine when we just say yes to doing the thing he's put in front of us to do, kind of thing.
It's a good word, brother. Well, Nick, man, I appreciate you. I'm grateful for you. I've enjoyed the time and the memories that I have of you as a student, and just watching you grow and thrive and succeed and continue to walk in accordance with the will of God. It's a cool thing, man. So thanks for taking the time to come here and talk with us.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
Bye.
We'll see you soon.
We'll see you.